Is it working? I don't know.
There goes Michaela.
There goes Michaela in the background. Welcome to Word Time. Oh, there we go. All right, I think it's working. Welcome to Word Time. This is Coach Shaw and Coach Little Shaw with Coach4Christ. This is James and the Giant Priest Youth Department. We decided to go live today. We don't know if we'll get anyone on here. If you do, great. If not, whatever. This is called Don't Call Your Kids Part 2. And it might be a Part 3 because we're going to talk about Matthew 24 today. Pastor Kevin in church reminded me today a little bit about Matthew 24 and how this is one of those chapters that people don't like going over sometimes because of the truth involved in it. And if y'all recall, the last time when we did Part 1, Don't Call Your Kids Part 1, we talked about demons and things in Revelation, okay? And so James had some questions about Revelation. So we're going to go into that in Part 3, hopefully. Michaela, stop! Michaela's back there playing, so we're taking a risk doing this, but we'll see how it goes.
Should have brought her with us.
Should have brought her with us. Well, anyway, so we're going to get into Revelation a little bit on the next one, but we have to set the stage with this stuff just a little bit. So those who are following with us, we're in Matthew 24, and we're going to start in verse 3, okay? All right, go ahead and grab your phone. Look, you can grab it, look at it. All right. Go ahead.
Later, Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives.
Mm-hmm.
Olives. He displaced
His disciples.
His disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us when you will all this happen. What sign will signal your return and the end of the world?"
Right. So the disciples asking Jesus how they'll know when he comes, and we have so much nowadays that so many people that talk about Michaela, come here. Just singing back in the background. I don't know if y'all can hear her or not.
She comes.
You gonna sit with us? Okay, then go over there and be quiet. Listen to your show. Y'all wait.
Listen to
All right. Anyway, sorry about that. So, pre-tribulation, post-tribulation, we know Jesus is coming back, but lots of people argue about when he's coming back. Is it before all the bad stuff happens? After all the bad stuff happens? A lot in the Bible preaches, in my opinion, and it's not, I don't think it's my opinion, it's what happens, that it's going to be a post-tribulation, okay? And we're going to get into that just a little bit. So the main thing is the disciples asking what happened or how this is going to happen, and Jesus explains it to them. Go ahead and move on. We're in verse 6.
And you will hear.
This is Jesus talking to the disciples. Okay.
And you will hear of wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wars and threats of wars. But don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end will follow independently.
Immediately. Right. Go ahead.
Nation will go to war against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be
famines
and earthquakes in many parts of the world. But all this is only the first of the birth
pains. Right.
With more to come.
Okay, so Jesus is sitting here saying, this is how you'll know I'm coming back. When I come back, you'll hear wars and threats of wars. Okay, nation will go to war against nation. Now, do we hear about wars nowadays sometimes? And we've had lots of wars throughout the years leading up to this. And then it talks about famines and earthquakes. We have plenty of earthquakes, famines, and then we have some pestilences nowadays with the virus and things like that. Well, we've never lived anywhere where you've had to deal with that, okay? Everything shakes. And the earth is moving, the earth is splitting up and cracking and stuff. And some stuff falls in the earth. Amen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So that's what he's saying. This is the beginning, the birth pains, all right? All right, go ahead, keep going on verse 9.
Then you will be arrested, persecuted, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm good. I'm dying. Corona.
You will be hated over all over the world because you are my followers.
Okay, so this kind of ties into what we've talked about a little bit between us, and I had a podcast the other day that we listened to. You'll be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You're a Christian. You're going to be arrested, persecuted, and killed. Why? Why are Christians going to be arrested, persecuted, and killed?
Because
The Antichrist is going to come, and he's going to come and attack all Christians, all people who are supporting Christ. Okay, and he says you will be hated all over the world because why?
you are my followers.
Because you're his followers. Just because we have people following Jesus, they're going to be hated. Is that true nowadays? Yeah, there's lots of people that don't like us because we're Christian. Okay, it's very open. If you don't watch the news, you can see it all over the place. People are trying to destroy the Christian ideology completely, especially in America right now. Okay, so that's just another example. You're not going to be able to sit here. If you're a Christian, you should understand that you got Corona now. So as a Christian, you need to understand you're going to be hated by people. You're not going. You're not going to get along with everybody. Caleb playing in the background. I told her to go to her room. Oh well. Well, we knew it was going to be a risk. All right, but Jesus said we'll be hated over the world because we're His followers. Okay, so we shouldn't expect to try to make everybody happy. Right? It's not going to be possible. We are going to be hated for our faith, and we have to be able to be bold and stand up for our faith, like all those apostles did that died gruesome deaths sometimes. Okay. All right, verse 10.
And many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other.
Okay, stop. What does that mean? Many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. What's that mean?
People will betray Jesus
Right.
and they will hate each other because they're
Right. So not only are they going to betray Jesus in the sense of they acted like a Christian before, they're going to fall away from the faith. Why? Because we're going to be hated for what we're doing. Okay. We're going to be hated so much because we're followers of Christ. There's going to be a lot of people that just say, you know what? I'm not cut out for this because they're not being prepared. And this is kind of the concept of why we're doing this. Don't call your kids. Oh, I will just touch it. Okay. Because if I teach James, here, sit up, I'm going to tell you. If I taught James that everything's okay and we're going to be raptured out of here and we don't have anything to worry about, he's not going to be very prepared if something goes bad. I'm trying to prepare him with our scripture, with what we're reading, that the Antichrist is coming. And it says here, Jesus said, you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. Now, obviously, Jesus knew. He's telling his disciples at the time. Jesus knew at the end of the age the disciples weren't going to be there, right? So who is he talking to then? Who is he saying, you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed? Us, the Christians, the faith, okay? It doesn't say anything about being raptured off, does it? Does it say anything about being saved from the Antichrist? No. Okay, it talks about it's okay. Okay, it talks about us being arrested, persecuted, and killed. We will be hated. Okay, and many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. Okay, that doesn't sound like we're all gone and up in heaven somewhere. Okay, so keep that stuff in mind. This stuff has to take place, and the way this is talked about, the words of Jesus, this does not line up with a pre-tribulation rapture. Okay, all right, let's keep moving. Verse 11.
And many false prophets will appear and will deceive many people.
Right. So what does it mean to deceive people? Okay, good. That's why we're doing this. No, deceive is like to trick them. If I deceived you, I told you that we're going to do something, and then we didn't do it. Okay?
So,
like me telling you that we're going to be saved from the tribulation, from the Antichrist, and then it doesn't happen. That would be what a false prophet does. Okay? and many false prophets will appear. Now, those older who are listening to this, okay, many false prophets will appear. We have them all over the place in churches nowadays. Okay, preaching different gospels. I did a short podcast a couple days ago on the way to pick up the kids about how we have so many in the church, specifically in the church. It's not just people we're fighting that are atheists or whatever. It's the people in the church that have a different gospel than what's in the Bible, and they are leading people astray. Okay, so that's bad in itself too. So we're having that as well. This kind of stuff is going on. All right, verse 12. Okay.
Sin will be
Mm-hmm.
rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold.
Right. What's that mean? Sin will be rampant everywhere.
Like all around the world,
Right, and it gets worse, rampant, getting worse and worse. Are we having anything like that nowadays? Like what? What's been happening in those major cities recently? Yeah, riots, right? Are we having sin rampant then? Yeah, we're having stuff like that happen. What about in the?
It's all over one man.
Yeah, well, a couple different ones, but yeah, it's because people are so prone to sin that they're able to do that. Okay, and it says, "And the love of many will grow cold." What's up, sis? You want to join us? And the love of many will grow cold. What's that mean?
I thought we got rid of that. Our love is going to be cold.
What's that mean for it to go cold? In the King James, it says it waxes cold. Wax is cold. Like what happens when wax gets cold?
Wax.
It doesn't flicker. It's not as strong anymore. Okay, so if the love of, like if I love you or if I love another person and it waxes cold, goes cold, I don't love them anymore. I don't care about them. And we have problems like we have nowadays where people are rioting and killing people and they're not thinking much about it. Okay. All right, keep going. Mm-hmm.
But the one who endures.
Endures?
Endures?
Yeah.
Okay. Endures to the end will be saved, and the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world so that all nations will hear it, and then the end will come.
Right. So the good news is even throughout all this bad stuff, Jesus says the good news about the kingdom will still be preached so that all people can hear it. So at the time that this stuff happens, and remember, Jesus said this 2,000 years ago, and we're kind of living in that time right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay, and he says at that time, the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the entire world so all nations will hear it. Are we to the point where all nations have heard the gospel probably? Yeah, pretty much so. With TV, with internet, things like that, okay? Computer, exactly. All right. Okay, let's move on. We're going to jump to, we're going to skip just a little bit about how Daniel talks about the Antichrist and how people are going to have to flee because that time is going to be so bad, okay, and dangerous. And we're going to move to verse 21.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, okay.
For there we will be greater
Anguish.
anguish than any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again.
Right. So when this tribulation hits, it's going to be greater anguish. Anguish, do you know what that means? Anguish is like heartache, trouble, death, pain, anguish. Okay. If you're in anguish, you're in pain, you're struggling. Okay. For there will be greater anguish than at any time since the world began. This will be the worst time ever. Okay. No, when this starts, the last 7 years, remember? We're not there yet, but we're getting very close. Okay. All right. And it says, in fact, in verse 22, unless that time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive. Okay. So unless it was just 7 years, like God said, not a single person will survive. Okay? But it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Who do you think God's chosen ones are? The Christians, right? The church. So if the church was going to be raptured off before all this, why do you think God put in there, or Jesus wrote down in there, that it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones? Does that make sense? It says it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Who are God's chosen ones? Us, the Christians. So does that mean we're still on earth? Yeah, we have to be still on earth then, right? Okay. Again, more proof that this is something that's going to happen when Jesus comes back after the tribulation, not before. Okay? Right, and here we go. Let's move to verse 23.
Then if anyone tells you, look, here is the Messiah. What is it?
Messiah.
Or there he is. Don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders, so as to detect it if possible.
Deceive, yeah.
Deceive you, if possible, even God's chosen ones, which is us.
Mm-hmm.
See, I have warned you about this
Okay.
ahead of time.
Right. So he's saying, don't let anyone deceive you and say, look, there's the Messiah. He's out there. He's in the desert. He's over there, saying Jesus came back.
He's in our yard.
Right. Where he's not going to be there. We're going to know. We're going to get into that. How we know. Right. But this is in direct contrast to the Antichrist, who, when he sits on in the temple, he's going to say, I'm God. Everyone worship me. And we'll know, okay, that can't be the Messiah, because we would know if that was the Messiah. Okay. We'll know. Okay. And here's how we'll know. In verse 28, so if someone tells you, look, the Messiah's out in the desert, don't bother and go look, or look, he's hiding here, don't believe it. For as the lightning flashes in the east and shines to the west, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. You remember hearing about that, right? Yeah. Okay, so we'll know when Jesus comes back, because we will see a lightning bolt tear open the sky, and it says it flashes in the east and shines to the west. Okay, we're going to know when that eastern sky opens up and when it's Jesus for sure. Okay, and I'll read this last part. We're in verse 30. Okay, we're going to finish this up here, and then we'll get into kind of the details of maybe the rapture and the very end. We'll see it. That verse right there tells us we'll see it. Every soul will see it. Okay. No. We're going to be taken up when he returns. Right? Okay. And in verse 30 says, and then at last, the sign that the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be a deep mourning among all the people of the earth. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. You see, it says, all peoples of the earth, and they will see the Son of Man coming on clouds. Okay? And in verse 31, he says, and he will send out his angels with the mighty blast of a trumpet, and they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven. So doesn't it seem like Jesus would have to come back at the end of the tribulation based off what we've read? And then it says, and then he sends his angels to gather his chosen ones. Right? Okay? So that's a lot of evidence of why there is a post-tribulation rapture, number one. Number two, all of the troubles and the sorrows that we'll get into when we get into Revelation, that's a little bit more detailed. But we've talked about earthquakes and famines, wars. Okay, there's going to be a lot of death. It gets a lot into that in Revelation, but we'll get into that later on. Okay, so hopefully this was a little bit of an idea and kind of a starter for when we get into part 3 next week. All right, we have a lot of discussion pre-trib, post-trib rapture. Okay, but there's a lot of evidence in Matthew 24 from Jesus' own mouth that it's a post-tribulation rapture. Okay. All right. Any questions? Concerns? All right. That's part 2 with Coach4Christ, Youth Division. This is James and the Giant Preach. We're signing off. This was episode what, 10? 10. Episode 10. All right. We'll see you next time. All right.
Bye.
Bye.